ask the first family member to come forward. I believe that's Rich Forrest. You can stand at the podium and address the court, please.
Honorable Judge, the events of these past few years have been very detrimental to my family and loved ones. Since Vashti's life was taken, my family has not been able to focus nor enjoy life. Losing someone to natural causes is a very upsetting event. However, losing someone because of another person's selfishness is horrific. I can still remember the call I received when Brett took my sister's life. I will never forget it, and I hope that no one has to go through such a tragedy. I've tried to keep myself busy in order to deal with the loss of my sister and loved one. I've had to take time away from my children and family to defend my sister and be her voice. I have many questions that will never be answered, most of which ultimately is why. Why did you have to take her life? Losing my sister at such a young age brings sadness not only to my sister and I, but to my children, extended family, and most of all my nephews. Brendan and Bronson will never have the opportunity to know the love and radiance of their mother, Vashti. They will never have their own memories of their mother. Their memories will come from stories and photos passed down from those that loved her. Brett Seacat, I originally wanted to write this letter to you and point out what you have done wrong. Anyone that is capable of taking a human life, however, has no moral compass and is a monster in their own right.
Your Honor, I would object to any comments being directed to the defendant. These are supposed to be comments to the court for the court's consideration.
I don't think that's an inappropriate comment at all. I'll allow him to continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. However, to this end, I am writing this in the hopes that the judge will impose the maximum sentence to make the world a safer place. You and your family have made wild and hurtful accusations against my sister, my family, and myself. Why? Is this to keep the focus off of yourself and your atrocious crimes? When you're writing a victim impact statement, it is hard to know where to begin in explaining all the pain that you have caused and explaining the anticipation of future events that we will never have our sister around for. Every Christmas, every Easter, every holiday, and every birthday, we will not see our sister because of Brett Seacat. You are not only a murderer, but you are also a thief. You have stolen Brendan and Bronson's mother, and you have stolen our beloved sister, and today I am her voice. Why did you choose to punish your children for the rest of their lives? Why have you chosen to hurt your parents? Your blatant disregard for your children, your parents, and Vashti's life reinforces the fact that you do not deserve to be in society ever. Brett, the emotional havoc you have caused has destroyed lives, destroyed careers, destroyed your children's innocence, and deprived your children of knowing both of their parents growing up. Whoever raises my nephews can never provide them with the type of love that their natural parents can provide to their own child. In the age of the internet, at some point in their lives, they will find out the nature of the heinous crime you have committed, and they will be forced to deal with something that no child should ever be forced to deal with. This is one example of your complete disregard of how your actions affect others. It is unfortunate that you could not have put your narcissism and self-centeredness aside for your own children. Within my family, I have witnessed greedy people become greedier and seen careers impacted by your actions because individuals are either not thinking clearly or are worrying about the lifelong decisions they will be faced with regarding the responsibility of caring for Brendan and Bronson. My nephews will bear the emotional scars of your actions for years to come. A real man does not hurt his children and others around him in such a way. When your children are older, what exactly are we supposed to tell them when they ask about their daddy? As I stated, it is hard to start and stop with an impact statement. I could go on for days about how we will miss Vashti for the rest of our lives. She is gone, and she will never smile again, never laugh again, never kiss her children again because of your actions. A jury of 12 people found you unanimously guilty of this crime of taking my sister's life and endangering your children. You can try to live a lie, but your verdict proves that you have fooled no one but yourself and your loved ones. Your Honor, this is Brendan and Bronson. They will never know their mother growing up because of their father, Brett Seacat. They have been deprived of a fundamental right that most children get, which is to be raised by both parents and nurtured by their mother. Your Honor, this is my sister. She will not be eligible for parole in 25 years. She will not get a second chance to be reintegrated into society. She is gone forever because of Brett Seacat. I ask you to please show Brett the same leniency that he showed my sister. Please impose maximum consecutive sentences and keep him out of society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Taylor Forrest.
Your Honor, Brett, I want you to take a moment and remember the first time you saw Vashti. I want you to remember the first time you summoned the courage to hold her hand. And I want you to remember the first time you kissed her. I want you to remember the look on her face when she said, "I do." Most importantly, though, I want you to remember the first time you held your first baby boy in your arms, and then again 2 years later. For the past 19 years, Vashti has been woven into your life to create a blanket of comfort for you. Together, you two had stitched together a family, but like any family, any marriage, it wasn't perfect, and there were a few stray threads. When you first conjured the idea that maybe her life wasn't as important and valuable, maybe it was best she was gone, you tugged at that thread. And when your idea of murdering her became more concrete, you pulled irritably at that thread. When you burned hard drives, forged a suicide note, and bought the gasoline, you ripped at that thread angrily. And finally, when you pulled that trigger, making sure that Vashti would never laugh or hold her voice again, you annihilated that thread, tearing apart your woven comfort and family. See, all along you were pulling and tugging at this thread, wanting perfection. You thought that without this thread, without Vashti, that your little family could sustain perfectly. Little did you know that when you took away that thread, your world fell apart. Of course it didn't fall apart right away. You were given a few weeks of a false pretense that everything would be okay. But given the wear and tear of those few weeks, and you eventually realized your false sense of reality was not going to last. It wasn't until a couple months ago when the jury rang out with a guilty did you think that you would forever live in desolation with your mistake. You still perceived your sense of reality, or some would call it arrogance. You believed that by setting fire to everything, you were covering up evidence and that it would be near impossible to convict you. The funny thing with arrogance, or an overzealous self-confidence, is that it can create one to think of themselves as invincible. It can cause a person to think that they made no mistakes. So on behalf of the family, I would like to thank you for your arrogance, Brett. It created errors in your plan that not even you yourself could fathom. I've sat here and berated you and tore at your comfort. Now I'm just going to remind you of what you will be missing with your children while you sit in prison for your sins. You're going to miss taking Brennan and Bronson to their first day of school. You're going to miss the normalcy of just helping them with their homework every night. You're going to miss watching them play their first football game, and you're going to miss their graduation, their marriage, and their first children. Your arrogant, selfish ways are probably sitting there thinking, yes, I'm going to miss all of this, but so is Vashti, and I made sure of that. But here's the thing. Every day, we are going to remind those boys of the beautiful mother and person that she was. We're going to remind them that she loved them so dearly, that she endangered her own life so they could be happy. We're going to remind them of how brave and strong she was. And most importantly, we're going to remind them that although she is physically absent, her memory lives through ours and our hearts, and she smiles down on us from heaven. Needless to say, I don't think I'm going to be reminding them of the painful reminder that their dad is in prison. I won't tell them of how awful of a person you were. I'm not going to talk down on you because you're still their father, but I will let them know the truth. They will know that you decided to ruin their lives, and you decided to take the comfort of having a mom from them. I wanted to get up here and say, have you ruined so many lives? You've taken a loving sister from Rich, Kathleen, and I. You took a loyal daughter from Julie, Delmer, and Dad. And you made it impossible for Sydney to have her aunt watch her first child be born. You took away a cousin, niece, and a friend. Our family still deals with the scars you've created every day. But this day, it's not about us. It's not about you. It's about her, and it always has been. She had the type of smile that would light up a room. It was as if her laugh was contagious, and she was loyal to every single person she cared about. From my personal relationship with her, I know that when she loved with a full heart, especially when it came to her two boys. I cannot fathom why you thought you had the right to take someone away, take someone with such a zeal of life away from us. So after all of this, I would just like to say, Brett, you did your best to do your worst, but let me tell you, you didn't finish first.
Sydney Hostetler.
Brett, I cannot begin to express in words how it is not to be able to pick up the phone and call my aunt. I cannot express how much regret I have for not coming to that Easter, that last weekend before you took her life. I reminisce about her loaning me $5 the month before my prom for jewelry, and the next month waking up that prom morning to know my aunt was murdered. Throughout my prom night, I kept reminding myself I would never hear her call me love bug again. But this isn't about me. It's not about our family. It's about Brendan and Bronson. Sadly, they will never get to know their mother because of their selfish father. I do not feel the need to reminisce your cowardly ways that night, or remind you your life is over. I want to remind you of Vashti's boys, the love of her life. Referring to them as her whole world doesn't even begin to put a dent in that phrase. We all know she was a self-sacrificing mother. She did everything and anything for Brendan and Bronson without thinking twice. If there was a Mother of the Year award, she would receive it hands down without question. She was the absolute best thing for them. The only person who wanted to convince otherwise was you. I will tell you, their lives were completely destroyed because of your actions. They suffered nightmares and many tears for their mommy, and they missed her daily. For the first year, I was convinced you destroyed any hope they had for a normal mental cognition, and they would forever suffer personal and social situations, especially Brendan because he knew more. They had anger outbursts that were violent towards each other and caused more anxiety amongst us with worry. For the first year, Brendan felt the need to stash anything he thought a fire could be started with. Many times we found these items under the couch or in his special hiding place. He even worried leaving candles burning too long would set the house on fire. Brendan would explain to his mama Cat things like, the house will catch on fire but you won't come out. Only me, brother, and Daddy Jeff. Luckily, Bronson was little enough not to remember much, but he does remember his mommy, and for his birthdays he asked for a super bouncy thing so he can jump up to heaven and see his mommy. He doesn't ask about you. The boys have obviously been in therapy, as they rightfully should, but the violence was and has always been an ongoing issue. They are angry their mommy is gone. They hurt and long for their mommy to come back and hold and love them. Sadly, this was their only way they knew how to express this longing and anger. With all the ups and downs I have witnessed in their healing process, I can wholeheartedly say you carelessly took the best and most important person in their lives away from them. She is not replaceable, but with her loss, I can say they now have the second absolute best person in their lives to mother them, my mom. When you took Vashti's life, our family was split, and that ends with each other. Sadly, we all realized how crucially important it is to keep healthy relationships close and to work on them daily. I watched many family members crack under the grief and pain, and others rise up to become better and stronger individuals. I'm proud to say the person who grew the most was my mom. She stepped up to the plate for those boys and became their new sense of what a mommy is. When they see their Mama Cat and Daddy Jeff, they have the sense of happiness I saw in them before you destroyed their chance for having their own mommy and daddy raise them. When I watch Brennan and Bronson with them, I know Vashti is looking down smiling with pride. Her boys are overcoming every hurdle caused by your decision to take her life. Feeling they are in a safe place, they have now opened up and expressed their feelings about what had happened that night. Along with expressing openly, I've watched one-on-one guidance blossom them into amazing little boys that are a joy to be around. No doubt, none of us will ever be the same, especially not Brennan and Bronson. Sadly, this all could have been avoided if you had not been so selfish. I have come to the recognition that even though the best person for those boys was taken, they now have the second best, my mother, and I find peace in that. Thank you.
Clint Forrest.
Your Honor and Brett, I'm the father of Vashti, and I'd like to address a couple concerns I have. And the main thing was, my main concern is that Brett had stated he was going to kill Vashti and burn the house, and he exactly did that. And he also has threatened some of the family members with the same consequences, and I am concerned about the safety of some of my family. And I think that he should be in a situation where my family is safe and able to live a normal life. And we have a system in America, and it's worked pretty well. And I also am aware of the criminal mind and how that can or cannot be changed. Sam now has laid it out, and I understand what has occurred here. And so I just don't want any more victims in my family, and I would like the situation to be resolved where my family is safe and can go on with a normal life as best they can and try to put the pieces together. But I would have some concerns about their safety, and I just would hope that we'd be all protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Hamnicker.
Your Honor, defense counsel, and last and certainly not least, the amazing team that had the drive and ability to ensure justice is served. Amy, Jessica, Matt, All the members of the police and fire departments who spent countless hours on this case, we give you our sincere gratitude. Know that your efforts are greatly appreciated, and while at times thankless, you're doing great things that affect so many lives. We can't put into words how grateful we are. Brett, the world is a lesser place because of your actions in April 2011, the night you took a wonderful woman, incredible mother, and my wife's best friend. 12 jurors returned that verdict, and tens of thousands more followed on TV and the internet, and they agreed. Your mom and dad love you enough to believe you. You should respect them enough to tell them the truth. Your brother stood by you. Your family members are also your victims. Let them move on as well. We all know what happened that night. Let everyone move on rather than continue your plight to try and drag Vashti down. You murdered her, and both families are dealing with it every day. We miss her, and her boys miss her. Your family is reaching for hope because you continue to lie to them. We would like you to finally admit your actions. If you had a sliver of morality, you would muster the courage to do so. I am certain you won't, because courage is not in you. You should also admit the false-hearted things you said about Vashti to attempt to discredit her were lies. We know they are. At this point, you're guilty. It would be nice if you found it in your heart to tell the truth. You caused dissension in many families with those lies to try and protect yourself. But telling the truth isn't who you are. I hear the lies you've told your family about members of this one. They want to believe you. However, just like with the murder, you are lying. Your actions that night were the epitome of cowardice. I can think of nothing weaker than going into a room where a woman slept, shooting her in the neck, and then portraying yourself as a hero that tried to save her and her children from the fire you set. Do you realize they called soldiers that were unwilling to charge up a hill littered with machine gun nests into certain death cowards? You shot a woman in the neck while she slept. It's as if there should be another word for your level of cowardice. There was never any doubt you did it. Your words that morning still ring in my mind. Vashti killed herself and set the house on fire. You said it twice. What you didn't know is you told me in the order you did it. Vashti made several trips to see us, and she said she feared what you were going to do, but she also knew she had to take the chance if she was ever going to be free. You made the plans and tried to cover your bases, but you couldn't have known all that she shared, all that was said, or all the supporters she had in her endeavor to move on. Vashti was loved by so many. Her actions touched the hearts of many more. The public didn't hear half of what Vashti shared. There were hundreds of people that knew how incredible she was, and they were willing to come forward. The public couldn't understand how compressed you were for time, which led to a lot of your mistakes. They didn't get to hear that you had one window of opportunity, and after that, things would be far more difficult because you were going to be out of Vashti's house. If not for someone canceling on Vashti last minute, she wouldn't have even been there that Friday night. Since Vashti was going with friends on Saturday and you were supposed to be out of her house on Sunday, your options were limited. Did you plan this in a couple of days? Absolutely not. Did you have to put your plan into action without tying up all the loose ends? Yes. There are other things the public didn't hear that would have made them understand you and the situation even better. It would have helped them understand how we knew from minute one that your story didn't hold water. For example, the 2 corgi dogs that were in the house. Anyone that hasn't stayed in the house wouldn't know those dogs went crazy at the slightest sound. When I got up in the morning, the floor creaked and they went crazy. They were in the house by your own admission, yet they didn't do anything to wake you, as Vashti, per your story, somehow brought in gasoline, walked around the entire upstairs, etc. Then they supposedly found their way through the doors that you didn't hold open for them. Ironically, Brendan knows your story isn't true because he told several of us the dogs were already in the car. Think about that for just a second. Your dogs were in the safety of your car before your own children. Have you taken the time to do the math on just how many things would have to line up in order for your story to be true? Why would she start to put Kathleen's name on bank accounts, pull insurance paperwork to change the beneficiary, yet stop short of changing everything over? To frame you? Did she leave her car unlocked for one night so that you would put the boys and the dogs in the car in the hopes that she would find, or they would find, a forged suicide note? Was it just coincidence that after she planned all this out, that you would supposedly stand in the area with smoke so thick you can't see, yet you could breathe fine without coughing? That you could drop to the ground and crawl out and keep a cell phone in your hand, yet not have any traces of anything on your body? Did she overlook the fact that you had abnormally strong hair that would not burn as you went through a fire? Yes, the heat surrounding fire would burn anyone else's hair. You sat in our living room years ago and you said you could get away with killing somebody. You said you could get away with it because you were smarter than the KBI, the police department, and the fire department. Fortunately, you were wrong. We commend them all for doing what it took to put you in jail and get a conviction. After hearing and seeing the evidence presented, there is no doubt you were correctly found guilty, though your narcissistic mind, the grand cover-up, and frame job are probably your next grasp at straws. I hope the photo of her on the bed is forever burned in your mind, because you can see from the positioning of her arms, she was holding a pillow, laying on her side, peacefully sleeping. Had your plan to burn everything worked, we may never have known the truth. I believe you care for those boys to the extent that you can care about anyone other than yourself. As Gandhi said, a coward is incapable of exhibiting love. It is the prerogative of the brave. I think you were afraid of Vashti moving on and felt you had to do something because she was finally getting out from under your control. She was happier in her final months than she had been in the several years prior. Look at the photos of her in her final months. She was a beautiful, happy woman that was ready to share her life with somebody that complimented her, not one that drug her down or held her back. There is one upside to this whole story. While your actions have negatively impacted so many people for so long, many have become stronger through this. There are many friends and family members that have become close. Unfortunately, your actions have also brought out the true colors of others. Regardless, we are choosing to make the best of this entire situation. In closing, let this be on your mind as you sit in your cell 23 hours a day. You were once known for being a law enforcement officer. Because of your actions, you will forever be known as the coward that murdered his sleeping wife, a woman that made this world a better place. She was a beloved mother, sister, and friend. The impact of your actions will never be completely tallied, as she had just recently started down the path to an even better life, doing more amazing things when you selfishly murdered her and single-handedly made this world a lesser place. Your Honor, when making a decision on a sentence, I implore you to take into consideration this. Vashti traveled to Oklahoma on numerous occasions. She told us her fears of what was going to happen and had the courage to try and move on despite the probable outcome. She shared with us Brett's dream about killing her and what he wanted to happen if he followed through with her threats. She sat in our living room and begged Kathleen to be her voice and pleaded with us to make sure the world knew the truth. She beseeched us to carry out her wishes for her boys. Kathleen and I promised we would. Vashti was not a clairvoyant. She knew what Brett was capable of, and she shared her fears with dozens of people. His actions gave Vashti a life sentence. She didn't get the chance for anything else. He gave a life sentence to her friends, her family, and Brett's family. I witnessed my wife losing her sister and her best friend. They had a bond that few people will ever have the pleasure of knowing. Brett gave Vashti's best friend, my wife, a life sentence as well. I entreat you to impose the maximum sentence on Brett Seacat. He has proven he's not worthy of less. He does not deserve to ever be part of a free society again as long as he lives. Thank you, Your Honor.